Hey guys, Boom here and welcome to another Let's Codepen. For today we'll be looking at a little YouTube call to action I've inserted in some of my new pens that relate to YouTube videos, and rather than just your regular call to action, I thought I'd make a call to action so that way, you know, if people don't want to look at the code line by line and they might think, you know, that's a cool CSS spinner bro, but I ain't got time for that. They'd rather watch me do it, so they hover over that, call to action, click it, video, let's go. Before we get started with the code, I thought I would just show you a super slow mode of the clip-rect transition or animation, depending on how you implement it. Now, as you can see, it's different to other transitions or animations where it actually reveals the content rather than growing it or moving it. So it acts much like if you've got, say, Photoshop, it acts like a clipping mask. So the initial state is it's fully clipped, fully hidden, so you can't actually select it in the DOM. If I bring up the inspection tools, you can't select it, but you can select the link. And if we hover over it, it transitions the clip-rect to fully reveal the content. I've pre-filled out the HTML that we'll use for this pen. As you can see, it's all just wrapped in a anchor or link, and I've assigned some classes, so it's just got the href of the actual YouTube video and target underscore blank, which ensures that if it gets clicked on, that'll open a new tab, and we can see that it's working. Opens up the video. Bob is your mother's brother. So within that, as you can see, it's unstyled for the moment. Within that, we've got I guess the breakdown of elements is we want a box that contains the video info, so that would be the thumbnail or the image of the video, the title, which I've just inputted here, and the meta, which is a generic class I've just assigned to say, you know, the title, sorry, not the title, but the description of the video, which is, you know, essentially the title, but that's just how I've laid it out. And then separately, so these are siblings of each other, so obviously here's the parent, here's a child, and here's another child. This is where we store the call to action itself, which is the watch video, and the icon here, which is actually an SVG. It's rather long, so I've collapsed it, but I just found this Googling for a suitable YouTube SVG. So that way it responds and it renders well on the actual element itself. I just quickly set up some base styles. So I've defined the font that we'll be using, which is Open Sans. I've declared a color as a color variable to be used as the background color, and set the body and HTML elements to height of 100%. So let's get started with our styling. So the first element we want to style is this video link. So we'll start that off. And just for the purposes of enabling us to see what's going on, we will define it as an inline block, because by default element and anchor tag is display inline. So to get any background color, we need to define it as a block level element. So choose the world's best background color for display purposes, green. Look at that, gorgeous. Now what we want is this fixed in the bottom right hand corner, and to do that we'll apply fixed positioning. And what fixed positioning does is, regardless of how long the document size is, so even if you have to scroll, will always remain in that bottom right hand corner, and that's what I'm looking for. So let's apply position fixed, and because it's in the bottom right hand corner, we don't need to define the top or the left hand coordinates, so we'll just start with the right, which is 0 because it's plumb up against the side of the screen, and bottom 20 pixels, just to give it a little buffer off the bottom there. Cool, so next step is to define the width. Now I'm using a width of 200 pixels. It's not going to be responsive, and I think due to the size of the actual element itself, I'm happy with that. If I come to issues further down the track, I'll potentially make it responsive, but I don't think it will need it. So let's just define the width here with 200 pixels, and we'll also define a height of 45 pixels. Now you might be thinking, hey, what's that 45 pixels for? The 45 pixels is for the call to action button that I want here. So, but you can still see all the icon and additional information below. That's because we've got overflow properties as visible, but this will make more sense shortly. So to remove the underline effect, we'll also add a text decoration. Yep. So to get it more in line with what we'll be doing going forward, we'll just move this to display block and change the background. As good as the green was, we'll move it to white. It's updated now, and we'll change the color. Move the color just so I keep a consistent code style to, and all of the elements within the video link should inherit that as the color. So if we move on to the next element, it's the video info here, and that contains the thumbnail, the title, and the meta. So let's get on with that. And we actually want this to be a Flexbox. Display flex, and we'll assign the flex properties to column. Direction column, and that's just because we want the thumbnail, title, and meta to be stacked vertically. And we want this positioned absolute. Absolute top negative 225 pixels, left 0. Oh, we don't need to clear the bottom. Now what you'll see is that is all the way up there, and that's what we want for now. So to help rein in some of the styling here, because there's a few elements that are off the screen, we'll actually skip down to the CTA sections, the video CTA. So this is the sibling of video info. So let's just get started with that. Video dash CTA. Sorry. Good old indentation, not doing what I wanted it to do. And we'll display flex. And even though we want this to be a flex direction of row, this comes as default, but it's good practice to actually define it anyway. And we'll assign the position to relative. Just to help with the alignment, and just to get it under control, we'll do video logo, and within this we'll target the YouTube logo. A good thing, so this selector here is actually targeting, where are we, the SVG here. So just as a simple fix, we will just give it a width of 45 pixels and a height of 45 pixels. Look at that. Under control. So within this video CTA, we've got two, or if I reference it over here, we've got the video CTA. Within that, we've got the video CTA logo, which is essentially a container for the SVG, and the CTA text, which is the watch video. Now, because we applied a flex display type and direction of row, we want to control how these behave within the flex container. So with video CTA, we want essentially this logo to be fixed to the left side of the icon, with this watch video being centered in the remainder of the element width. And you could do that by pixel based positioning, but because we're using Flexbox, it's arguably a little bit simpler. So let's assign the flex property. So we don't want this to grow, 0. We don't want it to shrink because it shouldn't shrink, because it is, we defined the dimensions earlier as 200 pixels at the absolute parent of the video link. And basis, we'll just do 45 pixels. Now I don't fully understand flex basis, but it's a good to have. It's basically because we're assigning display type of or display direction, sorry, of row, we want to assign the basis or the initial value that it will assume, and we'll also define the width just as a backup of 45 pixels. Now while we're here, we might as well go deal with the video -cta text, and we'll say flex grow 1, so that will then assume the full width or the remaining content width. Sorry, shrink 0. Just add a little bit of padding because we're not actually going to align that text to center. Usually you would, but left 20 pixels. But it actually didn't balance out very well, so we've just got the text sitting 20 pixels off the left side of the element there. And generally would be pretty happy with that, but we'll just go define the font properties quickly. So font size 14 pixels. Right, oops, 8. Let's do 700 to give it the bold look. Come on, there we go. And just ensure that we don't really need this, but just so you know what's going on, text align left, letter spacing. Yep, sorry, typos. You'd be used to that by now. And I also just noticed as I was doing that the font's been kicked down a little bit, and I had a quick look in the debugger because I was like, what the? And it's because I forgot to declare the height. Or just minimize that quickly. I forgot to declare the height in the logo container. Now you'll always find good things happen with SVGs that you don't always expect, aka I define this SVG size as 45 pixels, but for some reason the containers decided to be 50 pixels in height, even though I didn't define that anywhere. So let's go fix that by defining a height here of 45 pixels. That should fix it up. Yes, because we had where are we? We defined for the actual total video CTA align item center, which brings this smack bang in the middle. So we've basically got this CTA section, or the call to action section, almost exactly how we want it to look. The only little things are we're going to define some border radiuses here. And if you watch any of my previous videos, you know that these are my two favorite styles to type. And I just apply border radius of 20, border bottom left and I've found 24 pixels just to be the perfect match for why oh why. What have I done? The radius is there, but let's apply background white. I've defined a background white somewhere I shouldn't have. Let's just put it here anyway, just in case, so we know background white. Nope, it's still there. Let's remove the background there, see what that does. Nope, that didn't work. Video CTA. My good old, I always mistype background, so you'll be pulling your hair out. There we go. exactly how we want it to look. Now we've just got to deal with this section here. So with the video info section, which is this portion here, which you can't see at the moment, so we'll give it a background of white just to assist. I'm tempted to give it the green, but we'll leave that at bay for now. Top left, right. This is meant to be assuming the height of, that's right, because we didn't define the height of 225 pixels. There we go, and I've given it a little too much at the top there, so let's go negative 200. Now the reason I've given it a height of 225 and negative 200 is because just the way I've positioned it absolutely. So this top left corner here would originally start here. So to subtract, even though, I guess to summarize, we want, when this is expanded, like this is the end state, I want that little painted box there. And because this here is 45 pixels, I thought an easy halfway medium would be to add an extra 25 pixels onto the bottom. So that's why we've done a height of 225 but only subtracting 200 pixels there. So next up is the thumbnail, which will really add some substance. So we'll indent that and call video thumbnail. Now, as we've already defined the flex property of column, we can just let this assume those gorgeous flex properties of grow 0, because we're basically defining in terms of pixels what we want this to be represented as, and that's purely because I want to maintain the aspect ratio of the image. Basis auto, and there are a few ways of doing that, but this is the simplest. So height is 100, 12.5 pixels. What does that do? You can see the image, it's just not doing what it should be, and the reason, so 112.5 is just, I went and calculated that on the side. So given that the total width is 200 pixels, total width is 200 pixels, to maintain the aspect ratio, calculated the height needed to be 112.5 pixels. Now, as we've defined the background image in inline styles here, I've done that because this is essentially replicating how I'll be doing it when I turn this into a JavaScript pen, which is the next video. But for now, we've already got the image, so all we need to worry about is the size being a cover and position being center. Look at that. It's pretty much finished. You could be happy with this, but because we're all extremely professional around here, we like to add those finishing touches. So we'll go style. So even though we've defined the, I guess the pixel based ratio that we want for this, we'll do the same with the title, but we'll allow the metadata to use its flex properties and stretch. But a little point of note is we want to apply a padding bottom to the video info. So this whole parent here is the video info parent, and that cuts across about here. But because we want, when we're doing a flex calculations, we don't want it to be using that last 25 pixels as part of the distribution calculation. We want to add some padding so that way it's only counting the element as being this high essentially. So we'll go here, we'll go below the height, padding bottom 25 pixels, and that will essentially treat that as being 200 pixels in height. But why? If we go negative 225, amateur mistake. You can see amateur mistakes in progress. So even us amateur pros make these types of mistakes. Box sizing, border box. Haven't even defined how my elements will be measured. So border box is basically just saying what's a way to calculate the content sizes. So as I added padding and I hadn't defined it, it added that extra 25 pixels to the height of the element, but that is for another topic. Right, so as I wanted to pick up the pace a little bit, I decided to just copy and paste in the styles that were defined for the video title and the video meta. That's essentially because they're just styling text and we want to move on, but you can see here it's just applying some Flexbox properties, aligning these two or relative to the flex, so that will be flex start, justifying content is flex end. Here's some paddings, font size, yada yada yada. Nothing fancy in here, it's just basically manipulating these to get the effect that I wanted. So I wanted that nudged a bit off the thumbnail there. No, go away, naughty Norton. And then obviously I wanted this to have sufficient space and sizing to have a description in there. So let's get on with the good stuff. So time for some clip-rect madness or magic, depending on which way you look at it. So we're going to be clipping the video info element, which is this, and the best place to start is where you clip it so it represents its starting point. So let's go clip-rect, get racked. So the way the coordinate system work is from the top to the right to the bottom and from the left. It's really confusing. Best thing to do is Google it, because that's what I do every time I use this, because I keep forgetting how the coordinate system works. You can almost have a whole tutorial on displaying it, but I won't be doing that. So there we go, we've managed to clip that whole video info element there, and that's the starting point. So obviously when you see that, that will be fully clipped like so. Now you can see there's a bit of a remaining overflow there, and we will be dealing with that separately using visibility and opacity. But for the meantime, let's show how we'll get the hover effect of animating the clip-rect, and that is done via the video link. So the video link is again this element, and we'll be deploying the CSS state of hover. And just to help out, I'd like to comment CSS states here, just so you can quickly scroll to it and find it. So we'll target the video info, and again same error, clip-rect. Right, so we will do 0 pixels, 200 pixels, 225 pixels, and 0 pixels. There we go, look at that. Now as you can see, the only difference is the starting point. So essentially the starting point, we've clipped it down from the top 200 pixels, and then we're removing that. Now with clip-rect you can apply auto, so that way it essentially I guess defaults to the dimensions, like the height and width and whatnot of the element. But if you use auto, you can't animate from one point to the other. So to do this, you've got to animate it. And another oversight that I should have mentioned earlier, as with clip-rect you have to apply it to an absolutely positioned element, and that's the reason why you might not see it that often. So it does limit its effectiveness in all situations, especially responsive situations, but for the purposes of this, so as you can see here, video link is, video info is positioned absolute, so that's why we can apply the transition on it. Now as you can see, that's just state jumping because we have no transition. Now I'll be using relatively simple transitions here, clip 0.56 ease and out. Now my normal version has some cubic Bezier timing functions, but just for the purpose of this, we'll keep it to the ease and out. Gorgeous, look at that. So it's pretty good, you could ship that like that. But to essentially rid ourselves of this, we can't use overflow without getting into too many specifics. it will kill the box shadows that we'll be applying down the line, and you just don't want to have to work around that too technically, so we'll just use visibility. So the default status here will go from, actually we won't need visibility, we can just use the cheaper type of opacity. Opacity 0, and we'll give that an opacity of 1. Now visibility basically hides or makes an element not clickable from the DOM. So if you say, for example, if I didn't apply that clip-rect animation, let's just get rid of that, and oh, I'm wrong. Okay, there are some instances where you need to apply visibility of hidden, because anchor tags and whatnot can still be clicked, and it prevents highlighting and selecting of other elements, and obviously that depends on different situations, but we won't go into that for now. We know we can just deal with it with opacity. So let's add a opacity of 0.2 seconds. Off the top of my head, what's that going to do? Right, because I didn't like how that was fading. So we want, in this case, see how it's the opacity is removing really quickly. We don't want that, but we want the element to be almost visible straight away as soon as we hover to see the reveal effect. But after we let it go, we want to be able to deal with this. So we have to have two different timings. So we'll do on hover of 0.2, but for the removal we'll do 0.4. See what that does. No. I tell you what, just to simplify things, we'll remove that there. We'll just keep it here, but we'll apply a delay. So we'll go 0.2 and a delay of 0.3 seconds. So there is no, it's just an instantaneous opacity change there, but on the out, there we go. Let's say we're pretty happy with that. Oh, what's happened with our... What has... Amateur mistake. I'll take that back. We still need two different versions, because that was obviously applying on the in and on the out. So we just want this transition applied at hover state, and this is the default. So bang. Oh, gorgeous. Look at that. Cool, so we're ready to ship with this. This is basically final. Now, as you'll see in my live version, I do have some box shadows to make the element stand out, and I've done that by using pseudo elements, or the after element, and I've had to do it a certain way, just so that way the shadow appears on this video CTA when the hover effect isn't showing, but also when it is showing, we don't want the box shadow of this element to overlap the video info section. So we had to have a few crafty maneuvers so that way it didn't apply there, but you also got the box shadow effect for the video info. And you'll see on that code as well, on my live code, that when I've applied the clip-rect, I've actually done negative 50 pixels at the top and negative 50 pixels at the left, and that's just to allow the box shadow of this element here to show. So let's call it a night or a day, depending on where you're based, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching, and if you like this video, leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe for more Let's Codepen videos in the future. So, over and out.